Morning and welcome to Over the Target. I'm Lee Smith, and we've got a really great show today, really fun show today as well, with someone I know you've been following. You've been following him on in Legal Insurrection, the magazine he started in 2008. I know that you've been keeping up on some of his other work too. He's a Cornell Law School professor. So I want to welcome, without further ado, William Jacobson. Bill, thank you so much for being here with us this morning on Over the Target.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sure. So what I want to talk about, I want to come back to Legal Insurrection a bit, because I know that this is widely read in the country, especially, I guess we call it the dissident community right now. It's not just on the right, but we have people on the left as well who are joining us to say that they are outraged by the different things that are happening, not only in the legal system but elsewhere. But first, I want to talk about your latest initiative, which is equalprotect.org. So if you can give us a little background on that, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, equalprotect.org, the Equal Protection Project, is a project that we launched in late February of this year. So it's only a couple of months old. And what we're doing is we're focusing on fighting against discrimination that is done in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we've seen many very troubling examples of discrimination on the basis of race in order to achieve what they claim is a diverse workforce or whatever it happens to be. Problem is, discrimination is wrong and unlawful no matter who it's against. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've been doing, and we've got many examples, even in just 2 months, that we've been working on. But that is something that is spreading throughout academia, throughout corporations, really throughout society, the thought process that it's okay to discriminate against some people on the basis of race.
So, but you handle the higher ed piece. You're talking about in corporations as well, other places in society, but you're dealing with it in colleges and universities. Is that right?
Well, we're dealing with it mostly when it comes to public entities. So that could be a university that receives federal funding, could be a school district of K through 12. But we're also going to focus on corporations. It's just that is not our initial main focus. Our initial main focus are public policies that discriminate.
Can you give us a couple examples of some of the cases, some of the issues you've been handling lately?
Sure. Well, one is in Providence, Rhode Island. So we're based in Rhode Island. And the issue is that there's Providence School District, which is the largest in the state, has a new teacher hiring incentive program. But what it does is it provides loan forgiveness to new teachers who are hired, but only if you're non-white. So right on its face of the program, it discriminates in that way. And so we've challenged that. That's now at the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
I was just going to say, we hear stories like this, and the first response is, well, wait, that's illegal. How can you get away with that? And I know that's why you're handling these cases, but why do they think they can get away with these sorts of things?
Yeah, well, that's seems obvious to everybody that that's illegal. And you wonder how they did it and why they're doing it. But even after challenged by us, they're continuing to do it. So until they're forced to stop, they are so deeply embedded in this sort of racial gerrymandering that they're going to continue to do it. And so that has been a real problem. Providence is still doing it. And even though they know it's at the EEOC. So this is something that we see. So Providence is one example. The Albany, New York Public Library, so a public entity, has a fellowship program that is only open to Black librarians, so that we've challenged that as well. Missouri State University had an employer boot camp where business people could come and get training, but it was only open to BIPOC and women. So white males were excluded. They've now backed down from that. They've announced they're not going to do that anymore. We don't think that's really should be the end of it. But these are the sort of things that we're seeing almost everywhere. And we get tips at equalprotect.org. We have a contact form that people can give us tips. And that's how we find out about most of these things. They're not necessarily publicized in a way that would be easily accessible.
That's what I was going to ask, how you get this information, whether people come to you, whether you're scouring the media for this. And I want, if we can, of our great producers, they can post again equalprotect.org so that people can alert you and your team. So yeah, but it's mostly through tips that you're getting.
Mostly through tips. I mean, sometimes things we just come across in the media, but I'd say, most of the things we do are from tips from people.
How's it going in the courts? What are the courts like?
Well, we're just 2 months old, so we haven't filed any lawsuits yet. We will. Our model, if you want to call it a model, is to investigate and find out what's going on, publicize, educate the public about it, and in the hope that once a light is shined on this practice, the entity will stop doing it. And we've already had good results with that, where they've stopped doing it. But we are preparing lawsuits, and we will be suing people whether it's through an administrative action, like we've already done with the EEOC, or whether it's through a private lawsuit. Of course, for a private lawsuit, you need a plaintiff with standing. You need somebody who has the legal ground to bring that. And what we're finding is that a lot of people are scared to do that. They're intimidated. Even though we would provide representation without cost, they're worried about retribution. So if you're an employee, and we're finding that particularly in the Providence School District, for example, that a lot of teachers are feeding us information and very upset, but they know there will be retaliation. Even though the law prohibits retaliation for complaining about discrimination, they know it's going to happen. And there have been examples, or at least one example of that happening. So we will pursue whatever remedies are available to us, but what we won't do is just turn a blind eye to what's happening.
Well, look, aren't they worried about, if they're worried about retribution, aren't they also worried on the other hand, like, well, if this keeps going this way, I'm going to get pushed out of my job. So isn't it better to put up some sort of fight before they're forced out?
Well, theoretically, yes. And I certainly think you can make that case. But when you're dealing with someone's actual life and their job, and they have to pay rent next month,
right,
it's that theoretical becomes very problematic. That yes, this system that they're building may at some point in the future force me out. But if I do file a complaint, I'm going to be subject to immediate discrimination, immediate retaliation. So it's a hard thing. And I understand that for people that, there are tens of millions of people in this country who live paycheck to paycheck, and they can't afford to miss a handful of paychecks while we figure out the legal things. So we're totally understanding about that. And that's why when we have the option, we will pursue other remedies, such as administrative remedies, where we can bring those administrative claims in our own name of the operating entity, which is Legal Insurrection Foundation, which runs the Equal Protection Project.
Yeah, let's talk about Legal Insurrection for a second, because I want to get your sense as someone who has been looking at this for a while, and partly through the lens of Legal Insurrection. Have you seen this sort of stuff building? I mean, again, so you've got equalprotect.org, you've got the Legal Insurrection Foundation, and there's also criticalrace.org. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so you're looking at all of these different things. What was the turning point? Like, how did you see this stuff building? And when you say, okay, now we really got to get out there and start fighting it.
Well, I think you could say that for at least a decade, it's been building, that the DEI bureaucracies have been in place. The incorporation of that ideology throughout academia, throughout education, and now even into corporations and government has been building for a decade. But if there was a turning point, it would be the killing of George Floyd, then the BLM movement and launch. And that's where you saw, including at Cornell University, a very aggressive turn, I should say. So Cornell University, where I teach, announced after George Floyd's death that the suggested reading for the summer was Ibram Kendi's How to Be an Anti-Racist, which expressly advocates discriminating currently to remedy past discrimination. They also announced that we were going to become an anti-racism campus, and that we would be an anti-racism initiative where there would be mandatory training for staff and for students and faculty. The students and faculty piece never happened, but the staff training happened right away. So you had these, and what happened at Cornell happened across the workplace landscape, not just in academia, very aggressive programs to promote what they say is anti-racism, but in fact is in many ways a very racist philosophy, which is that you judge people based on their identity group. It's a group identity philosophy. And that's our problem with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Rather than saying, is every individual treated fairly? You're asking, what are group outcomes? And if you're presuming racism from group outcomes. So I would say the turning point for the nation was the George Floyd killing. You saw 50 billion with a B dollars pledged to these movements by corporations and foundations. Not all of it's been paid. In fact, probably most of it hasn't been paid, but they were pledged. And then you saw a very aggressive term on the campuses. And so that was the turning point for the nation. For us as an organization, to launch Equal Protection Project really was 2 years in the making. So the first project we launched in reaction to this campus push was criticalrace.org. And criticalrace.org identifies and documents critical race theory, including in its various forms, which include DEI and so-called anti-racism, through databases, through interactive maps that you can hover over your state, you can click on your state, you then see a drop-down menu. We're now up to over 500 colleges and universities, 100 top-ranked medical schools, the 50 top-ranked private K through 12, the military academies, and our most recent one is veterinary schools. So that was our first reaction to this, was let's document what's happening. Let's do that. And the most recent one, equalprotect.org, was launched very specifically in response to that Providence teacher loan forgiveness program. We said, okay, it's one thing to document it. It's one thing to expose it. Now that there is open discrimination, they're not even hiding it. It's not a nod and a wink. It's not something behind the scenes. They're openly discriminating on employment benefits in a public school district based on race. We said we can't sit back and just report about it anymore. And we launched equalprotect.org in order to begin to take actions regarding it.
I mean, it is shocking. They must think they have an advantage at court if they're doing these sorts of things. Otherwise, I mean, they must be gaming it out down to the next steps. Like, well, what happens? What happens if we get sued for this sort of stuff? Because after all, it's illegal, it's unconstitutional. So what happens if we get taken to court? I mean, are they gaming it out that far, or they're just so delirious with their victories that they're not even looking the next step ahead?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think they are now completely in power, certainly in Rhode Island, a state run by progressive Democrats at every level of the state. They have complete political backing. They don't necessarily have popular backing, but they have political backing, and they think they're immune. They think they're completely immune, despite the fact that we've called everybody's attention to this and gotten a lot of media coverage about the problems in the Providence School District. The governor hasn't spoken up. The attorney general has done nothing. The union, the teachers union, which is affiliated in Providence with the American Federation of Teachers, has said nothing. 80% of their members are being discriminated against on the basis of race, and they say nothing. They do nothing. So I think in Rhode Island, at least, they're very emboldened. They figured until somebody tells them to stop, they're not going to stop, till a court or an agency forces them to stop. And at that point, a year or two down the road, they'll say, oh, sorry, we'll change our ways. So I think that it's, one, they're delirious with the euphoric with their power, and two, the legal threat is something that's down the road to them, and individual administrators, and this all comes in Providence from the DEI committee in the Providence school district. They figured they'll never be held accountable, and the politicians will run cover for them. So it's a very negative situation. And that's not true everywhere. Obviously, in Florida and Texas and other states, they do fight these things. But in blue states, deep blue states like Rhode Island, the discriminators are completely emboldened.
Bill, this is great. And all the work you're doing is fantastic, and we're going to pick it up. We just got to cut away for one quick second here. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please make sure you make the jump with us to Epoch TV exclusively. We're going to pick it up after the break. Bill mentioned something about veterinarian schools as well as law schools. I want to talk about the whole thing, how critical race theory is affecting veterinary schools. And Bill's gotten a lot of attention for their work on this, and we're going to pick it up right there after the break. Make sure you make the jump with us to Epoch TV exclusively. See you in less than a minute.
I realized that America is not immune to tyranny. It's very possible that America can become like China, North Korea anytime in my lifetime.
What does that mean?
In America, there is a ruling elite right now. The small group of people have so much power and influence, and they determine what is allowed to be spoken or not. They determine what is a truth or not. If you don't follow this groupthink, you lose your job, you lose your dignity, they call you bigot and racist. It's like we are being punished for the collective guilt like North Korea.
And I think that the majority of people, they want to do the right thing and they're being coerced.
Being free is not easy. Being free was so painful. I really don't think that we have that much time left.